Welcome to Talk About It Tuesday with Joe. Sorry this episode is late, but I needed it to be late because I couldn't record last week for my own sake. And since I'm doing a video series about mental health, I figured I should probably put my own first and put my money where my mouth is. So I did. This is my dear friend Curtis.
Hi, everybody.
We used to work together for Regis, and now he is an influencer with Matrix, or like a Matrix ambassador. I don't know what to call you.
I am an influencer with Matrix for So Color Cult.
Yes, and he's on the capture crew while we're here at the National Sales Convention, the SCNC, ACDC, QRZ, LMNOP.
Ampersand.
So today's topic is going to be forgiveness. And I don't know where the conversation will go because we're both kind of ADD. So it could start there and go anywhere. But that's what we're going to start with because that's what I posted that I was going to talk about because I thought it was a really valid subject to communicate about. Because as somebody who's been in a slew of weird / abusive / not great relationships, and also just unhealthy upbringing and witnessing unhealthy relationships as I grew up, forgiveness is really skewed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that knowing what it should and shouldn't be in a healthy sense, or at least my opinion of what it should and shouldn't be, because again, I'm not a doctor, this is me talking about my perspective and my experiences, and now you talking from yours and yours, but it's important. Talking about forgiveness, knowing what it is, and not being a doormat because you forgive somebody, because it was for a long time, and it doesn't serve a purpose that is positive or beneficial to anybody.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's just an interesting thing with how we learn to forgive, because it's not something that is just inherent to begin with. I mean, we hold grudges so easily, and these grudges that we hold on to can really end up affecting us in the long run. How we deal with future relationships, how we deal with current ones, whether that be romantic or even family. And it's all starts with how you are raised. Were you raised to be forgiving, or were you raised just to deal with something and not in a healthy way?
Yeah. So forgiveness in a healthy sense, or like a healthy way to forgive, is to kind of, in my opinion, again, acknowledge what has happened, like whether you were wronged. I mean, obviously if you're forgiving somebody, something wrong happened, but how you were wronged, that you were wronged, who wronged you, things like that, acknowledging it and dealing with it and then releasing it so that you don't carry that burden anymore. Forgiveness is not about the other person, which is how we think about it and how it's portrayed in the media and movies and everything that we've ever been through, even some like religious aspects.
Oh, goodness.
So it's not about the other person. Forgiveness is about yourself and letting go of that so you can grow and not be stuck and stagnant. So letting go of what they've done to you, acknowledging it and releasing it, does not mean that you have to reconcile with them and let them treat you that way again, or get back together or stay together with them. You can forgive somebody and still let them go. And I don't think that that's something that I understood, or, I mean, I understood, but I didn't put into practice when I was younger. So I've always joked that I'm like Mother Teresa.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I forgive everybody of everything. Eventually, I do hold the occasional grudge, but I'm really forgiving.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it's worth holding on to shit for a really long time. It takes a lot of energy to be really upset and really angry for a long time. There are things that I haven't forgiven some people for, but typically I'm really good at acknowledging it and just letting it go so that I don't have to be the one to carry the burden. But when I was younger, I would do that And then that meant that they were fine and we were back together or we were good and it's okay because I forgive you, so you're off the hook. And you don't have to let somebody off the hook just because you forgive them.
No, no. I mean, whether it be like in past relationships and stuff, like something terrible would happen and me wanting to just run out the door, right? And be done with it. But they still have this for me, and they still have my clothes, or they still have this. You know, one thing or another. Was I really forgiving that person? Probably not. I just wanted my things, and I just got over it. It was convenient, right? And I wasn't
So two very different perspectives,
right. I think well, with me, I have a hard time truly forgiving people. I have a hard time because I fixate on things a lot. I can't get it out of my head. Sometimes people will say something that's like really small, and that's going to interrupt my entire weekend because it's the only thing that I can think about. Right? I played out every scenario about what if they add to it, this is what I'm going to do, you know? Mm-hmm. And then it can end up just rolling and rolling and rolling until I can finally just out of nowhere, it's gone and I've forgotten about it. But I've never actually dealt with it, right? I've just, I fixated on it until it just got duller and duller and duller. I didn't say, it's okay. It takes so much longer when I do that, and I'm starting to recognize that and start, instead of being upset about a situation that somebody did something, they affected me negatively, rather than fixating on it, just trying to be, it is what it is, me giving myself energy to that person, to that situation, to that one minuscule moment, isn't doing anything good. I just need to remove myself from their situation, so that's it.
Yes.
That's healthy for me.
Good. Doing things that are healthy for you are important.
Yeah. Sorry if I'm getting totally off topic.
You're not at all. So again, like it's not about the other person.
No.
It's about yourself. And that doesn't make it selfish either. Putting yourself first in every single situation is selfish, but putting yourself first so that you can take care of yourself and be healthy so that you're able to engage with other people or take care of other people or whatever the role that you choose to take is important and is healthy. Like as a parent, it's important to have me time, to take care of things, to take care of yourself. And like in the Matrix world, we talk about filling cups. So like you have to fill your cup because you can't fill anybody else's when yours is empty.
Yeah.
And if you continue to fill other people's when yours is empty, that's when resentment really comes into play, especially in relationships. So that's part of, again, my past relationships that were shitty. Like, I would forgive things, but I also had nothing left to give, and then I would start to resent, or they'd resent me. I actually had one ex who resented me because I never really fought back and I never treated him as terribly as he treated me.
Oh, goodness.
So, like, I would forgive him and he would be like, he would be meaner because he just wanted me to fight him and stand up for myself, is what he would say. But he didn't want me to stand up for myself. He wanted to fight and I wouldn't. And so it really, like, it made him, like, not enraged, but kind of enraged, like upset, like he just kept pushing and pushing and pushing to see where my breaking point would be in terms of like when I would flip out and when I was like obviously that's unhealthy.
No, for sure.
And I would forgive and roll over. We'd break up every 3 weeks. 2 weeks later we'd get back together after he slept with somebody else. Like it was not a good thing, and I was a mess.
Yeah, I with my a previous relationship before the amazing one I'm in now.
Gordon.
Engaged.
We love you, Gordon.
We love you, Gordon. So, I was going through a problem where there was that fight that was going to happen. It was going to happen, whether it be something small that was snowballing into something else. No matter what, it was always going to be blown out of proportion. That is something that I came to expect with it all. Just like you're saying, how you were going to react. They want that reaction. They want that reaction. In my situation, it was, breaking my brand new TV. I had just bought my first TV that I ever could afford on my own. So excited about it. had some stupid argument about like smoking a cigarette or something at the time. Took a stool and threw it through the TV right in front of me. I had just gotten it like that day, right? This was the sort of escalation that needed to happen from that person. They always had to just take it above and beyond, see what that ceiling was really going to be, and as soon as that repercussion would happen, they would break down and start crying. And it was at that point, because when they're in that fragile state, I couldn't do anything but forgive them.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was the only way that I knew how to deal with the situation.
It's actually a psychological tactic. And some people don't realize they're doing it because it might be what their parents did.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to villainize anybody or say like, oh, well, they're doing it because they're manipulating you and conscious of it. But it is a tactic. When you are presented with something and you don't like the information, you break down and flip the switch so that now you're the victim. So that the other person can't feel the way that they feel realistically.
Yeah. You're not allowed to because
No.
the other person's obviously feeling greater than you are.
Yes, and they're feeling worse
Mm-hmm.
and more upset, and they feel terrible about what they did, and they never want to do it again 685 times later.
Yeah. And please don't leave me.
Please don't leave me. It's gonna change. I swear it'll be better. But they never go to therapy. They never address the issue, and they do it again 3 days later, and still you believe them because you love them.
Yeah.
Which, love is a wonderful and awful thing. I have a lot of thoughts on love because I see people do a lot of terrible things because they're in love. I also have done a lot of stupid things because I've been in love. I love love, but I don't love what people do in certain relationships because of love. So, like things that I did. So your TV story brought something up for me that is kind of funny. So an ex of mine, and I went out, and they blacked out and got wasted, and I had to drive us home. And on the way home, they tried to jump out of the car like it was crazy, and I was like, "Do not jump out of the car, you will die," like all kinds of shit.
This dramatic bitch.
Yeah, lots of drama. I mean, and they were in a terrible place. And we probably shouldn't have been together, and I probably shouldn't have dealt with all the things because I was enabling him, but I didn't know what else to do.
Yeah.
So we finally get back to my place, and I'm like, going to bed, and he wanted to leave, and he was like, "Where are my keys?" And I was like, "You can't drive. You're wasted. I can't let you drive."
Yep.
And so this huge fight
I think
ensued.
a lot of us have been in this situation.
Everybody's been like, "You shouldn't drive," and the person's like, "Give me my keys."
I'm trying to drive. You don't know.
Yeah.
I only had 3.
I don't get drunk. So, and I mean, I've been that person, I'm sure. So sorry for whoever's dealt with me in that state, but like it was just bad. It woke my mom up. It was a nightmare. And towards one end, I took the keys, I hid them, I ran, I threw, and I saw from outside, because I ran outside with my keys. I saw from outside him Hulk pick up my TV and go to throw it out my window. This was like a 50-inch flat screen. And I was like, oh my fucking God. And so I ran inside and I was like, what are you doing? And he's like, get me my fucking keys. I'm like, ready to throw. And I did, because it got to a point where I couldn't control it. And it was gonna, like, I was like, okay, I'm next. If the TV is gonna happen, I'm next.
Yeah.
Didn't break the TV. I didn't let him. But it almost happened. And then they got in their car and they drove away. And then I was like, oh my God, they're gonna fucking die. So then I got in my car and I followed. They didn't die. A lot of crazy shit ensued. But I forgave and forgot and whatever. And forgiveness doesn't mean that you have to forget.
Yeah, no.
Like I said earlier, you don't have to let somebody off the hook. That doesn't mean, just because you forgive somebody or because I forgive somebody, does not mean that their responsibility for their actions is negated.
Yeah, absolutely. And just because you're no longer, maybe with that person, or maybe whatever obligations that you had before, and to me, I feel like you got fulfill what you need to get out of what you have to, right? Like, just get it done. Just because actions that you have to do might be harsh, in order for you to actually be able to get out of situations, though, sometimes the harsh thing is what you have to do. Like, when I was trying to, like, get my stuff from my ex when I was leaving, wouldn't let me have anything but what he decided to throw out on the porch. And I had to try and get into the house to get my stuff. And he pushed me out, and I'm like, nope, I am not getting physical. And I just called the police. He blamed me up and down that I got him arrested. And it's like, no, I didn't get you arrested.
You got yourself arrested.
But that sort of idea in the past would have worked on me. I would have felt so bad. Oh, I got him arrested and stuff. No, I didn't do that.
No.
But I forgive him for trying to make me feel bad. Because it doesn't have anything to do with me. It's that person.
Yes.
It's that person's circumstance that they put themselves in. Later, they got fired for bad attitude at work. Blamed it on me because I left. It's not me. Moving past it. I forgive them for trying to make me feel bad. But I don't really feel bad.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't either. I probably would, honestly, because I feel bad for everything. And I feel responsible for everything because obviously I'm God. But I'm not. But I just feel like that was facetious.
Feeling his oats.
I really do feel responsible for everything. Like, when something bad happens, I'm like, oh my God, what did I do to cause this?
Yeah.
And usually nothing, especially if it's not at all related to me. But I somehow still feel responsible for all the pain in the world. But
I think a lot of times too, for me personally, because I grew up from the time that I can remember to about 5th grade, my parents were together. And their relationship my entire life was fighting and then kiss, make up. And it, no matter how bad it was, whether it was plates hitting the wall or, object hitting the face, it has to be forgiven. You have to come back together. And so I don't know how it affected me, but my first few relationships were very, I will be with you no matter what. And I would forgive anything. I could get over it. It didn't matter.
yeah, that concept of unconditional love.
Yeah.
Right?
Because that's what love is.
Yes, it's unconditional. Bitch, there's conditions. There are conditions.
See section number 1, then number 2.
Treat me like shit many a time. I love you, but get the fuck out.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, I guess we're gonna do this again. Fool me 3 times, I still love you. Baby, please come back.
Stop talking about me like I'm not even here. But that was me a lot. But seriously, like, there are conditions. There need to be conditions.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you don't love somebody or don't care, but you have to put forth conditions that preserve your sanity, your safety, and your quality of life. Just because you love someone does not mean that you have to let your life be destroyed to stay with them, or so that they're not alone, or because you love them, or whatever. Like, you have to take responsibility for your own life because no one else will. Because you're putting them first, but when the situation reverses, that particular person will probably not put you first. And it's the most painful thing when you treat other people with an exemplary sense of almost like honor, but like when you're so forgiving, when you're so loving, when you're so accommodating, and you never ever get that in return from somebody. And then that's something else you have to forgive, because you're like, well, I treat you like somebody deserves to be treated like I would want to be treated, but you never give me back the things that I give you. And I guess I just have to accept that. Like, you don't. The problem is that when you don't typically stay with that person. And a lot of people are like, well, I want to be with him. Yeah. So I guess I have to. But you have to remember what your priority should be. And it's very hard to be logical when you're being emotional because they both don't happen at the same time. Yeah. But you have to put forth your self.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you are all you've got. Like, we're all connected. We're all part of the same thing. We're all weird blobs of flesh and energy and synapses flowing. But you also have to take care of the part of the machine that you are. Because if you break down, you're not the only person that relies on you.
Yeah. I think, you just said, why are you with this person? Well, I want to, but he just treats me like shit. You know, if you're at that point in the game, if you know that you're being treated like shit, that you should find out why is it that you actually are wanting to, and is it really like self-harm at that point? Mm-hmm. Because you got to get out of that. You don't deserve to feel like shit all the time. You don't want that. You really don't want to feel like shit. And if you do want to feel like shit, there is something way deeper at that point, and you need to find out what that is.
Well, so what's really interesting, because I love me some psychology and I do a lot of research, is it's a chemical addiction at a point, because everything that we feel are chemicals released into our brain, just like drugs are chemicals that affect our brain chemistry. So when you're in a really volatile relationship, lots of dopamine and serotonin get released when they're really kind to you or there's a really good day. And then when they're really mean, those crash, right? And you become emotional and you feel awful. But that huge swing becomes really, really addictive because the highs feel really, really good. So subconsciously, you self-sabotage and stay because you are actually addicted to feeling those waves of emotion.
This sounds like my addiction with McDonald's, right? You know what I'm saying? Because they talk about, like, a lot of people eat McDonald's because it's the comfort to them, because it always reminds them of growing up. Like, oh my God, going to McDonald's, get some chicken nuggets. Mm-hmm. That was my thing. Oh my God, I love chicken nuggets so frickin' much. And now, like, when I'm feeling like, oh, I just need some comfort, if I'm feeling hectic, going back to that and just getting like a McChicken or a McDouble, it takes me to a different place. I get that like comfort, and it just applies on different levels, you know. And so, especially if you grow up feeling like that's what love is, and so you're accustomed to that, it can really end up reflecting easily. But let's wrap it back up to forgiveness.
Forgiveness. We're so fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, so forgiveness is healthy for you. It's important to do for yourself. It can be important, obviously, in a relationship, because holding grudges in a relationship does not help it grow.
You cannot wait for somebody to give you what you want to forgive them. You need to sometimes be okay with just walking away from the situation.
Yes. And sometimes you'll never get what you want from that person, and then you have to decide, is that okay? Is that worth it? Is it not?
Kind of like when Pam leaves Roy in the office, and then Roy ends up to be an amazing guy with somebody else. Maybe he's just not for you.
Mm-hmm. So, yes. It's fine. But yeah, it's important. Again, it's not having to let them back in, having to not hold them responsible, having to let them off the hook legally. All right, so let's go. I'm going to go there for a second. So say somebody is abusive, say the police are called, say they get arrested because they've beaten you. Forgiveness does not mean that you drop charges and let them off the hook. And that's something, when you're in that situation, that's very hard to let go. But you don't have to do that to forgive somebody. You can forgive them and still let them be held accountable for what they've done. If they stole lots of money from you and their family, and you forgive them, that doesn't mean that you have to let them get away with the fact that they stole all of your money and valuables. You can choose to, if that's your true choice. Like, I'm not saying that you're a bad person because you choose to allow that to go away, but you don't have to. That's not a requirement of forgiveness. Mm-hmm. If you feel like they need to be held responsible to learn their lesson, or because it's just they need to, or because you don't want to deal with it and it's not your problem, because it's not, then you don't have to. But forgive their action for your own sanity and safety, because if you don't put your sanity first, nobody else will. No one. Literally no one. Not your job, not your partner. No one is going to put your mental well-being before their own, even though you're probably doing it for them. So you have to take that into consideration. And the reason why I say that is because typically somebody who's very empathetic does not end up with somebody else that's extremely empathetic in the same ways.
Mm-hmm.
You're out there. Those couples are out there. I'm in a pretty good relationship, so I'm not gonna like say that I'm not. But it's not very common for somebody who's very forgiving to end up with somebody else who's very forgiving. It's usually like one will hold something over the other, and the other one will be like, "Oh yeah, sorry." So
I think that's why in a lot of like people that especially in the gay community, I see so much just hopscotching around, like it's just never like a long-term relationship. And I mean, it's not for everybody for sure, but I think a lot of people want that. We all have dreams of wanting that. I feel like not all of us, but a lot of people have dreams of wanting that everlasting love. But it comes down to that empathy aspect, and you don't always find that other person that is actually going to take you into consideration and not put them into a place, that they need to be forgiven all the time. They don't raise that circumstance for the other person.
I'm glad that you brought that up, like dating somebody that puts you into consideration, because the other thing that one has to reflect on in a relationship too is when you're in a relationship, it's important that somebody that you're with considers you and how it's going to affect you, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they need to always put you first.
Mm-hmm.
Because just like I'm saying now that you have to put yourself first, they have to put their own sanity first as well.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are in that state where you're like, oh my God, but what about me? Oh my God, but what about me? Why did you do that without me? That hurts me. This is me, which is where we live, because
mm-hmm.
that's literally how we survive childhood. Like you have to be selfish and make yourself known. That's why babies cry, all kinds of stuff. But if you are only thinking like, well, they didn't think about me. They did this without me. How could they do that to me? Blah, blah, blah. They probably had a reason. Sometimes, like if they're not an abusive person, they did it because they needed to. Sometimes people need alone time. It was very hard for me to learn because I'm fucking clingy and needy. Like, my ex used to call me a head crab, which is something from a video game that like latches on and doesn't let go. I was really, really needy for a long time. I'm a lot less needy now. I think I just died a little inside, and that was like the appropriate amount for me.
You lost your head crab.
I did. Now I'm just a crab. But it's like not everybody, that wasn't healthy for them, and me forcing it made it worse, and then them retaliate, because when you're backed into a corner like a wild animal, you retaliate. So you have to take responsibility for what you do in a relationship too. And if you need to be forgiven by your partner, that doesn't mean that they have to let you off the hook. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean that you can't be held responsible. And that doesn't mean that everything is scot-free for you either. So forgiveness goes two ways. And put yourself first, but they also need to put themselves first. And you need to consider each other and make sure that the other one is still doing well as well. It's a lot. It's a juggling act. That's why some people stay single. That's why some relationships don't work. A lot of relationships. And it's hard. It's hard. Forgiveness is hard. Not being a doormat is hard.
I think not being stubborn for some people can be hard too, because maybe you get trashed. You get trashed one weekend, and somebody has to take care of you. And sometimes, that might be your partner, significant other, something might happen, rather than accepting it, being sorry for, having to deal with me, just being like, well, whatever, it might be something completely different, a circumstance that has happened, but knowing when to say sorry at the same time, forgiving yourself for doing these things, and being able to say sorry afterwards and actually truly mean it, right?
Yes. So another aspect of forgiveness is treating the offender with compassion. I read that, that's why I said it like that. But it's clinical. But treating the person that did you wrong as if they're still a human being. That does not, again, mean all those other things that I said you don't have to do. Like, you don't have to let them get away with it, or that they don't hold responsibility. It just means, like, I understand that you two are a human being, and that human beings fuck up, and we make mistakes, and we do things that we aren't proud of, or that we're ashamed of, or that we don't mean in the moment. And I understand that.
It's important to understand that everybody makes mistakes, but that doesn't mean that you have to keep that person in the future as well. Having the compassion to understand that, yes, they make a mistake, doesn't mean you need to take that mistake and blast it to all your friends and everybody that sits in your chair if you're a hairstylist, right? You don't need to be holding on. It's not just a good story just to tell everybody now. It's getting over it and really forgiving that person with compassion and then moving past it. You don't need to keep them in your life anymore. Just moving on.
Yes. But if they totally did you dirty, it's okay to talk about it if you need to.
Especially if it's really juicy.
Shut up. I can't. Juicy.
Juicy.
The other thing, too, is forgiving yourself, right? We talked about it a little bit earlier, but forgiving yourself is also alleviating yourself of feeling shame and resentment towards yourself, and sometimes towards them. So, talking about the drunk person, right? So, say you're the person taking care of the drunk mess, right? That can be really embarrassing. When you're with somebody and they act a fool, you can feel ashamed of them. And when you forgive them, you have to release that feeling of shame and embarrassment, which can be difficult. Because sometimes the people in our lives are embarrassing. And sometimes you have to look at embarrassment and think, why am I embarrassed? Who the fuck cares what other people think? But it can be really hard.
That is hard. That right there in itself that's something that I struggle with entirely, is not wanting to be embarrassed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be somebody correcting my backwoods grammar that randomly pokes out. This one right here. Or, just something that I accidentally did. Trying to find a way to move past it, not fixate on the time in third grade that I accidentally, tripped and fell and pushed the milk over that sprayed all over my friend or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, I get embarrassed about the weirdest things and then don't give a shit about other things that would normally be embarrassing.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't understand my own idiosyncrasies with that sometimes, but it still affects me all the time. So say with work events, when we do our energy, we get up and we clap and my hands really hurt after a while. But a lot of times at the big events, we get up on stage and we do it. And I'm like, nope, don't put me up there. Nope, mortified. No. And then I do it and I'm fine. But it's the whole time I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And it's so embarrassing to me. And I don't know why. Because everybody's there and we all do it and we all clap and we all know it's coming. So it shouldn't matter. But it totally mortifies the hell out of me. But then you put me on a dance floor and I dance like, again,
she's dancing like a stripper.
Yes. Like my rent was due 3 months ago and the eviction notice is on the door and it's got to be paid tomorrow. So it's just weird. It's real weird. Although I tend to dance like that more when the lights are low. But still, forgive yourself. Forgive yourself. Let the shame go. Don't be embarrassed of yourself or of the people that you love. If that's who they are and that's how they behave, I'm sure I'm embarrassing as fuck to some people. So if you love me, don't be ashamed to take me in public and let me be the weirdo that I am. And I will do the same for you. And if I'm not, call me out. And then give me 10 minutes to adjust.
Yeah.
I need some adjustment time. I'm not going to be like, yeah, you're totally right. I'm going to be like, I'm not doing that. And then I have to think and be like, I was.
It's okay to be cringy every once in a while, I think.
I'm cringy all the time.
Right? And sometimes you just get too much in your head, and you have to be able to be yourself and snap out of it. But like seriously,
yes.
Because if you're not allowing people in by like trying to put up this like this facade of what you are, you know, we elevate ourselves up and we have to portray ourselves the best way possible, whether it be with makeup or how we present ourselves.
Who even decides what the best way possible is? First of all,
ourselves.
Like,
we're the ones that
don't
set that.
Get the idea somewhere. Like this whole thing, and it's cultural. It really is cultural. I'm gonna get on my soapbox real quick. So even with work events or things like that, there's this thing like, oh, you've got to impress them, make sure you're on your best behavior, do this, do that, don't do that. Like there are certainly things that are unacceptable to do that are like acting a fool, like don't throw up. Don't pass out in the bushes.
It is never.
Don't take your clothes off.
It's never socially acceptable at any given point in time to have your hands in your mouth. Just so you know, just random thing.
Cool. I don't know who you were with that was doing that.
It just happens. I watch people do it sometimes, and I'm like, why?
Like I occasionally pick my tooth, but like
don't do it in front of everybody. Though.
But I'm not like, like.
I've seen it. I've seen it.
I can put my whole fist in my mouth. Why she?
Yeah.
I don't even remember what the fuck I was saying now.
This is my fault.
But.
And I forgive myself.
I'm so glad. I forgive you too.
See? Progress.
But be yourself. Be weird. Oh, I remember. Like this weird idea that you can't, like, you have to be super professional, whatever that is, and not let people in and not show vulnerability and all other types of things. Like, be your fucking self. If somebody loves you, or if you were hired to do something and you interviewed and you were yourself during the interview and they hire you anyway, well, then you get to still be yourself. Because that's who they hired. Like, don't allow somewhere to change you. So, for example, a salon environment, right? That's an easy one for hairstylists to understand as a hairstylist. So, I worked at a salon, and there were times where it really crushed my spirit because I was told to tone it down and be less flamboyant and things like that. And that's just who the fuck I was and am. Like, and having that had lasting effects on me that I'm still working through now because it put shame in me. And if you're in an environment or a culture that wants to change you to fit the culture, get out. You don't need to go somewhere and change yourself to fit in. What you need to do is find the place where you fit, the culture that you fit into, that will accept you and that you are normal and loved and free to be.
You know that I have so much to say on this gig because, I mean, when you find yourself in a place where you're not being appreciated for all the extra things that you do to make people's lives around you easier, to promote yourself, to do bigger, better things, when people see that and their initial reaction isn't to compliment you, but to either completely ignore it or only say negative things about what you're doing, trying to keep you down where you are rather than let you, you know, run with the unicorns, run with the horses, to see you succeed, you need to get out of that. Like, ain't nobody got time for that.
Get out!
Get out, for sure.
Steve.
You have to be in a place where positivity can actually be a growing tool rather than just fertilizing rocks.
Where your plant is watered and not stifled and killed. Damn it. All
Don't
right.
plant a seed in the desert. There's no water there.
Unless it's a cactus.
Yeah, then
That
plant
grows
it.
in that natural habitat. No,
Yeah.
cacti are desert cacti.
Well, the people that grow in the desert are spiky bitches.
I'm a spiky bitch.
You don't grow in the desert.
No, but I'm spiky right now.
You just need a shave.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for joining us. Thank you, Curtis, for doing this with me.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Of course. I really appreciate it. I wanted to have you sooner, but we were way too crazy at destination. So Curty B here lives in Washington State, not DC, and I live in Boston, if you didn't know. So we are on opposite sides of the country, and we don't get to see each other very often. So it's really, really a pleasure to A, be able to work with him twice within 2 months, but B, to get him to actually be on my little video and podcast.
And we'll do more in the future together, I'm sure.
Yes, yes. Now that I own a timeshare.
This one, and I forgive you for that presentation.
Thank you for attending with me. Thank you for almost buying one too, but then not. Hey, boss. So he didn't. That's what matters.
God, no, because I go with the plan. I go with the plan.
I was totally against it until it sounded really good, and then I did it. But I'm actually excited about it. I don't regret the decision at all, so I think that's good. I don't have buyer's remorse, and it's been a month.
That's good for you.
Yeah. I'm excited. I'll get to see you. I'll get to see people. I'll get discounted flight tickets, lots of things. Call me. I'll be your travel agent. But I just appreciate whoever is viewing this. Please subscribe if you haven't. I will have more material coming. I again appreciate you, Curtis. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And I forgive you for all of your transgressions.
And I forgive you for all the times that you have called me a fool, and I don't know, usually just call me a fool.
Yeah.
You know.
You kind of are one, but that's why I love you.
You know what? It's okay.
It's okay to be the fool. Somebody's gotta be. Just like somebody has to love math.
Go ahead and tag somebody that you forgive.
Yeah. Or tag somebody that needs a lesson in forgiveness.
Hi, Mom. Just kidding. My mom's amazing.
Shade. But yeah. So thanks and good night. Bye.